Everybody, and welcome to the new episode of Full-Funnel Live. As always, every Thursday, we are gathering our B2B marketing community, chatting about all things related to the go-to-market strategy and growing B2B companies with long sales cycles and enterprise sales. Last time, you guys asked us a lot of questions how to restructure our teams to run full funnel marketing programs. Partially that came because we were covering joint marketing and sales planning, the role of SDRs in account-based marketing programs in the previous episode, right? Now we were chatting about selecting accounts for the ABM program, and obviously all these activities require joint planning, joint review, and alignment, right? So today, we want to share with you an answer to the question how to develop these cross-functional full-funnel teams, right? How to structure them, how to adjust KPIs. But before we'll kick off, the most important thing would be answering the question, why doing this, right? So we'll have a story that we would love to share with you, just showing the typical scenario, typical situation that happens in the B2B organizations, right? How to define the red flag or the time that means that you need to change, and cover all of your questions. So first of all, I also need to admire that you guys are fantastic. We have, again, around 130 signups for today's episode, but 30 of you submitted questions. So the ratio sign up to questions is fantastic. So I appreciate you all for sharing these questions. And as always, we try to incorporate them and cover all of these questions. And before we'll kick off, where you guys joining us from? Let us know in the chat, please. And we are broadcasting from our offices in Villarreal and Valencia, Spain. And where you guys all joining us from? Let us know in the chat. And while you guys are Caroline, London, nice to meet you, Caroline. But before we'll kick off, a very quick announcement. Quite often, you guys ask us what tools we recommend to use for account-based marketing. And we have fantastic sponsor for our podcast. We always share them because we literally love this product and we use it quite regularly. It's called Dealfront, and it's widely known in Europe, maybe not that popular in the United States and Canada, but I highly recommend you to check it. And usually we used to kind of only announce the product, but I think what makes sense is just to show you why we love it. So it has several layers of data. It has intent data. It has account enrichment data, so you can immediately build a list of target accounts and map out the buying committee. You can integrate and get a holistic data of all account interactions and synchronize these interactions with HubSpot and Salesforce, right, to avoid account blindness. And if you want, we don't like this at all, but if you love to run programmatic display ads, you can do it from the platform as well. And the best part is that this company is product-led growth company, so you can get a free trial and evaluate the product for yourself. So if you are interested, just go and grab your demo by the link that I'm dropping in the chat. And that being said, hello guys from UK, Canada, Germany, London. Let's dive in. So today we want to cover, first of all, how silent marketing and sales functions impact pipeline. So I think it makes sense to start with this story with the numbers, right? So, which we kind of got during the audit of one of our best enterprise accounts. What did that audit? I'm just passing microphone to you.
Hey everybody, welcome to another episode. And this was a story about a client where we were invited to help them out because the marketing team has hit the MQL targets, but the sales team hasn't hit their revenue targets. And this is unfortunately a situation that we see often, right? And as you can see here in the numbers, I had to mask some of the numbers here because we have signed NDAs. But really, the concrete number that you can see here on the screen is 16,000 MQLs. Those were either webinar signups, event attendees, a lot of, let's say, ebook or white paper downloads as well. And then what happened with those, they were scored in Marketo. For each interaction, they would get a score, and there was a threshold. And after that threshold, these were forwarded to sales. And when I spoke to sales, I got a feedback from them. Yeah, we sometimes get assigned these leads, but we don't really know what happened with them. We don't know why they're assigned, and we don't know what to do. So we try to follow up with them. We don't get any response. And so after a while, actually, a lot of the salespeople simply give up and say, okay, this is not working, and they just stop even following up or engaging. From the marketing side, the complaint was, the sales is not following up, although we explained them all of that, etc. So you already see that there is a big misalignment there already on the lead handover, when you should hand over the lead, how you should hand it over, what information you need to pass. But the key problem, of course, as we all know, it was that these were not really leads. These were not ready to buy. Now, the biggest problem that you see here, maybe it's a little bit hidden, the number of, or conversion number. So from MQLs all the way down to the deals was 0.2%. And that's the impact of having misaligned teams. Now, when we started to dive deeper here, when we started to dig deeper, we discovered that there was not only a misalignment between sales and marketing, which is often the case, but actually it was a little bit worse. So if Andre, you can switch me to the next screenshot, or actually your design, featuring your design skills here. So what we discovered was that not only that there were silos between marketing and sales, but even within the individual teams, these teams were siloed. So what you see here is a list of the different functions that they had and that you typically have in larger B2B organizations. Some of them are marketing, some of them are sales. You see their KPI, you see what is kind of the core activity that they're doing, and then whether that's actually linked to revenue. So we had content, which was a separate team, which was basically looking at, they had output KPIs mainly and traffic, but KPIs in terms of like how many white papers they were supposed to produce each quarter, how many, I think they had like, webinars was in field. So how many blog posts they were supposed to write, case studies, etc. None of these were related to revenue, right? Then we go on for the demand gen team, which was mainly driving those MQLs that you saw, and mainly by doing paid on social and SEM, so Google search mainly. Again, MQLs, as we have just seen, not aligned with revenue. We hit the MQLs goals, but not the revenue goals. Field marketing, doing events where the KPIs were signups and attendees, again, not directly related to revenue. Demand capture, with actually via Google search purely, you can have some retargeting. Here, there were some inbound inquiries, some of them converted to deals, but there was absolutely no line, because like this was they were going after enterprise clients. So even if they were getting leads that converted into, some of them converted into revenue, a lot of them were not ideal customers. They were not like the enterprise accounts. And why was that important? Because actually it wasn't about winning the first deal. It was like winning and that expanding, and you cannot do that with a small company. So there was an misalignment on that level. Then we had client success, which was mainly, let's say, measured on the NPS, Net Promoter Score. They were doing things like onboarding and helping also obviously with some of the implementation. Again, no revenue KPI. We had RevOps, of course, digging through reports, numbers, no revenue responsibility. But even SDRs, they had a separate SDR team from the account executive team, and they were they were measured on meetings booked, which is probably the worst measurement they can do for SDRs, because it's easy to book meetings, but it's difficult to actually create sales qualified opportunities or to book meetings that become sales qualified opportunities. So not only that there was a big misalignment between, let's say, the individual KPIs and activities and the actual end goal of GTM, which is revenue, but there was also like big misalignment between the different teams. So, you know, it wasn't like unusual that a content would be creating content that had nothing to do with what was being promoted on demand gen or what the events were about, which is like a missed opportunity, right? So what we always like to do is to link these different activities together. For example, we had a previous podcast episode about cluster-based programs where we show how you can easily link these different activities together to create multiple meaningful touch points on the same group of accounts, which are likely to become a sales qualified opportunity this or the next quarter, right? So there was a lot of misalignment also in the activities and a lot of missed opportunities, but also a lot of bottlenecks, right? So once we started working with this team, for us to actually bring them together and start creating, you know, for example, content, it was like a lot of fights to get this plan, to get this done, to get it in the right format, to get it. So because it was like a separate team with their own KPIs, it was very difficult to move fast, which is what we wanted. So a lot of misalignment. And if this misalignment is not solved, it is impossible to have an effective go-to-market strategy and, you know, grow, especially not 2023, 2024, and I'm sure in the future.
And what is really interesting is that it's not the case only of enterprise organizations. We see this in smaller marketing teams quite often. So teams hire for different roles, content, paid, etc. And then these people work in silos. So the size of the organization, it doesn't really matter. Quite often it happens because there is no alignment procedure in the organization. So now let's stop for a second and leave bad things, put just bad things away, right? Because the point is not to discuss the wrong things, but the point and the goal for today's episode to discuss how to get out from that situation, right? So I saw a lot of questions coming from you guys. Okay, so if we embrace the reality, right, what should be our first steps? And I highly recommend you to start with revenue and deal analysis. To initiate the shift, you need to form a pilot team. You can call it change management team, you can call it pilot team, whatever you prefer, right? Doesn't really matter. But the point is that you need to involve people from marketing, from sales, maybe from client success as well, from product marketing, and depending on your organization, right? If you work for a smaller company, maybe someone who has a senior position, somebody from your stakeholders. If you work for enterprise organization, maybe just one of your bosses, right? And then the goal is to run an in-depth analysis of your historical growth and your pipeline, right? You can review, we always recommend to review your win and basically your revenue metrics across different geographical markets, across different verticals, right? So by revenue metrics, I mean win rates, average contract value, total revenue generated, sales cycle lengths, average contract value, number of successful use cases, right? These things are important because they give you non-biased opinion, right, where you should focus. That's the first thing. Based on this, you can also initiate the discussion why we are growing faster on specific markets or in specific verticals comparing to others, right? The next step is we want to develop these cross-functional teams. I think one of the most important things would be reviewing your top fastest deals, top best deals, and recent 5 to 10 lost deals, right? Fastest and best deals. Why? Because we want to replicate them, right? And next week, we are going to host a new episode. I know because this question again appeared when you guys signed up for this episode, how to develop ideal customer profile for ABM programs. So we decided to just record an episode and describe the process. So this is something that we scheduled for the next Thursday. Stay tuned. Now, coming back to the point, right? We analyze fastest and best deals and then proceed to lost deals. Why? Because we want to see the patterns, why we are losing the deals, right? Then we can have a discussion, why we have low numbers, why don't we generate enough sales opportunities? So for example, why do we have this, like in the case that Vlad described, why do we have a miserable conversion rate from these MQLs to sales opportunity or to closed won, right? More precisely, even not to sales opportunities, but to closed won, right? Why, for example, we call discovery calls, or let's say we book a lot of discovery calls, but we have a lot of ghosting prospects, high no-show up rate or low win rate, right? And that should be a frank conversation. So everybody should contribute, everybody should share opinions. But quite often, bear to me, you'll hear the same repetitive patterns. It would be, we deal with, we don't have enough vendor awareness. We hear it all the time. Whenever a company basically deals with this situation, they always say we don't have enough brand awareness, right? Okay, noted. Next, our marketing message is not clear. We have a lot of friction points in our sales process, right? There could be a lot of things that are coming up. So based on this, you start prioritizing ideas and defining the top challenges that you need to solve first. And second one, to persuade everybody, ideally, you need to print the data, and in the ideal world, you should have a blended attribution model, which is self-attribution, right? How did you hear about us, plus digital analytics, so all the digital traceable touch points with the target accounts, plus customer interviews, right? Obviously, if you generate thousands of customers, that might be the case, but if you onboard like just dozens of customers every month, that would be okay, right? You can host interviews with them and talk about their buying journey. Collect these patterns and then start measuring the the efficiency of current motions, right? Okay, we do paid. This is our conversion rate. This is our payback. This is our cost of acquisition, right? These are our revenue metrics. This is our outbound model. This is how much we generate out of it, right? And only that way, you'll be able to start seeing the improvements. So the point is that when everybody says, okay, we did outbound for, let's say, 5, 6, 7 years, and this is where we are with this motion, right? So it's saturated. It's not working, right? We need to change something. That's the first state. I have never seen a successful change management case without this data, right? You guys need to gather it. And what is really important? Quite often I hear another question, but what if I don't have this data? That's already the first red flag you need to share with everybody in the organization. You just need to tell, okay, we need to do data hygiene and we need to improve our data logs and data workflows, right? We simply don't know how do we grow. And normally, if sales try to hide this data for multiple reasons, that's not the goal to discuss them today, right? That would be the first step. And basically, when everybody embraces the data, embraces the reality, right? Accepts the challenges. The next step is sitting down together and discussing, okay, so let's say if lack of vendor awareness is our number one challenge, let's discuss now what we are going to do next, right? Data analysis, alignment with the challenges, selecting the top challenge, and then start and developing the first playbook. I know it might sound a little bit controversial to the conventional advice, right? It's always start with the goals, etc. But in some cases, goals could be not realistic, right? Your goal could be, okay, guys, hit the revenue targets, and you're already missing them by 40%. You know this, right? So that's not there is no point to start with the targets, right? Because then it will lead you to what you have done for years. The goal is to start with challenges. And first, quite often we see that first joint playbooks and this shift to cross-functional teams starts with solving the most important go-to-market challenge, which we'll share this transition in a moment. But let me know, guys, if that makes sense in the chat. Type plus or your favorite emoji, or type a question, which we'll cover later. So data, challenge discussion, prioritization, selecting challenge, and doing the transition to the cross-functional teams. And by the way, just before we'll cover that second part, very quick announcement. We are coming to Antwerp, Belgium in a few weeks to host a live account-based marketing workshop to simulate real ABM planning and ABM strategy development. So if you are willing to travel or live in Belgium and Netherlands, feel free to sign up. And I know that there are a lot of people who are watching us from Australia, from United States, from Canada, and you guys can't travel. If you prefer, you can enroll in our Full-Funnel ABM playbook. Again, the link is in the chat. And let's move to the transition, right? How to structure the cross-functional marketing teams.
Wanted to drop a comment for our friends from, I saw a few friends from London. One of the most beautiful flights that I had was from Antwerp to London. It was like such a short and a nice flight to the London City Airport that was like taking a bus, like so easy, no hassle. So in case you want to meet up in person, that would be cool. Anyhow, let's jump into the solutions. Now, this is a lot of text, so we won't be able to, you don't need to read it. I mean, you don't need to go through all of the different elements here, but just like a big blocks. And I like first want to just quickly explain these different elements, and then we'll dive into, okay, how do you start with that? You know, what is the first step? Because transforming teams is not easy, right? So, and I don't want to pretend that it is. So the kind of three key functions that we have here are go-to-market strategy that is usually owned by product marketing, where we need to make sure that we are actually building a strategy based on customer insights, that we have meaningful differentiation and messaging, and that we are not only doing, let's say, customer research once every year or something like that as a separate initiative, but to actually embed that into an ongoing revenue operations, which actually means already here we need to work with the different teams. We need to work with the sales teams to see what they are learning during their conversations. We need to see what we are learning from the client management or the client success team or the customer success team, etc. Now, I think like also a role of product marketing is also they really need to be cross-functional. They really need to be working closely with the demand team, with the ABM team, with the sales team, making sure that, of course, the right topics are being addressed in the content and the messaging is the right messaging is being used, and both in demand gen, the way we are reaching out, the way we are creating landing pages, the way that sales is explaining the product, etc. Right? So like product marketing, it has a really important role. Forgot to mention one very important thing, of course, is also owning the ICP, like who are our ideal customers, understanding the qualification, this qualification criteria, working closely with ABM so that we know which accounts to focus on, understanding the buying committee, understanding the KPIs of different roles, and how we might need to adopt our messaging for those roles, etc., etc. So that's the product marketing. What you see in the middle, we call it full funnel marketing. And the reason that is because you can organize these teams in different ways. I mean, our client, for example, has decided to put ABM together with demand gen. In some cases, you might have separate teams. If you have a really large organization, some of these teams might be regional, some of these teams might be in the headquarters. So just to illustrate like the full funnel function here and how these different sub-functions need to work together. So the demand generation team, one thing that is really, really important is that you have content capabilities there. You don't want to be like, you don't see a content team that is here separate. I would definitely want to have people from content working together with the product marketing, working on demand gen, materials, assets, etc., and obviously also for ABM on social content, on etc. You don't also see the field team. I want the field team to be together with the demand field and ABM. That is how you're generating demand. That is how you're nurturing your target accounts. What is also very important is if you look at this function, you have like the full funnel marketing function in the middle, that we are actually working on the same segments, right? So, and the same accounts eventually. So what we see in a lot of cases is that there is completely misalignment on the way that we are targeting, even like on a way where we are targeting our audience, but like I haven't seen this very often, the situation that I would like to see that we're actually working on the same accounts. And one other remark that I wanted to mention here is that you also see sales being part of the full funnel marketing. In some organizations, when that's possible, that's amazing. When you have like an SDR function actually reporting into the head of marketing, it's part of the marketing team. That's not always possible, but having especially that part of the sales team working closely with marketing is like super, super important. Otherwise, you're going to have a lot of problems, which also impacts the KPIs, but we'll tackle the KPIs in a moment. So this is not going to work unless you have good KPIs. So full funnel marketing, the role is to generate awareness, generate and capture demand, and then for high value, let's say, high value ICP accounts, also to accelerate this demand generation, capturing, and to increase the number of opportunities that we are generating from those accounts, but also after the sales has been closed, also to help the customer success or account executives to expand those deals, renew those deals, and prevent churn. And one last point, and I'll finish with this graph. On the right-hand side, you see what we call the backbone. It's usually marketing and revenue operations, where you have a number of functions that you need to take care of, such as obviously data and reporting, technology stack, but also enabling people people knowing what they need to do, setting up marketing automation, setting up flows, making sure also one important thing that is very often missed, also looking at the buyer experience or frictions in the buyer experience and removing those.
Good. So this is how the overview of marketing function looks like. And basically, this way we answered the question that Bella asked Bella Brown, where do you see it in marketing org chart, right? This is how we see the cross-functional collaboration, the marketing organizational chart. We didn't put the exact roles here, VP of marketing, etc., just not overcomplicated, but we wanted to present the structure of the cross-functional full funnel team. Now, moving to the second part, right? How both teams should do the joint planning. So the traditional way that unfortunately happens in most organizations looks like marketing to sales. Hey, here is our marketing plan. We are going to generate MQLs. We'll send these MQLs to you guys, and you guys go chase and close them, right? What sales do? They send sales wish list. Hey, we want to target the biggest banks in the North America. You guys need to somehow create awareness there. We don't care how. And also, we need some pieces of content from you, and please make these slides looking fancy, right? I'm generalizing and kidding a little bit here, but you got the idea. Unfortunately, the giant planning happens that way in most organizations. Normally, and yeah, by the way, I know that you guys ask us to share these diagrams. So for this specific reason, we started basically migrated our newsletter to Substack. So on Substack, we can embed these diagrams, and if you want, you can download them or cross-share with with your team members. So tomorrow we'll write a newsletter about this and embed all of these diagrams so you can download them. Coming back to the point, right? How the giant planning looks like. You have this team, you prioritize the challenge. Next, you need to look at several things, right? Pipeline velocity. I mentioned it a couple of times. Pipeline velocity is actually the best way to see your revenue trajectory, right? Because it's based on your current win rate, number of sales opportunities in your pipeline, your average contract value, and your sales cycle length, right? If you do remember a few minutes ago, I mentioned that it makes sense to run this revenue analysis across different markets and verticals, right? For you, one of the best ways to solve your challenge, let's say lack of brand awareness, and initiate the transition to full funnel cross-functional teams would be selecting the market and vertical, or sometimes clusters. This is what we discuss often on our podcast, right? Cluster specific challenges that your accounts have despite the vertical, right? And focus where you have higher chances for success, right? Maybe you have faster sales cycles. Maybe you have more case studies, use cases, or product implementation, right? So you have more content already created for this specific challenge or cluster, right? So that would be the first step. Analyzing this and answering the questions. Where should we focus, and how can we improve our revenue metrics, right? And then also having this discussion. If you see the difference between, let's say you are serving several verticals. Let's imagine you are selling to healthcare, to financial organizations, and I don't know, construction, just out of my head. So why, let's say in healthcare, your win rates twice higher than in construction vertical, right? So that leads you to a discussion. And also you can do this analysis if you have enough data. Obviously, you can do month-to-month analysis just to see if your metrics are improving or declining, right? If your win rates are declining, why, right? Is your targeting wrong? Maybe you need to improve your ideal customer profile, right? I don't know. There are a lot of questions or concerns from prospects that your sales team can't address on the sales calls. So all this analysis leads to the right questions. Where should we focus? How can we improve our revenue metrics, right? Then you have meaningful discussion. Instead of just a general marketing plan, you start focusing on this. Next one is adjusting your go-to-market strategy. And now I'm not talking about the global go-to-market strategy, but go-to-market strategy for this pilot program, right? We select this vertical, we select this market. What would be our ideal customer profile? Who are our best customers here, right? That's why I mentioned this deal analysis. How do they buy? Why do they buy? What triggered their buying process, right? What influenced their buying process? What value they're getting from our product? What jobs to be done will help our product helps with, right? What is the value they're getting out of it? And if you'll analyze that's why I mentioned the blended attribution, right? If you'll analyze their insights, what did they mention as, how did they hear about your product, right? Digital analytics, all the touch points, and insights from the customer interviews. And if you haven't done customer interviews, then you know what you need to do next, right? So selecting this, and that's not a big deal. As I mentioned, 5 fastest deals, 5 top deals, right? Maximum 10 interviews would be enough to get these insights. And then altogether, based on these insights, right, what marketing message could we create, right? How can we articulate the value of our product to this entire cluster, to this entire ideal customer profile? What content might help us to attract attention of these customers, right? How can we educate them about solving their challenges, about improving their jobs to be done? And usually that happens, third process happens in silos, right? Marketing does it on their own without involving sales. But when sales are involved, things drastically change. So first of all, you all agree on what makes sense. Then sales would be more eager to help you with the content distribution, right? And quite often, whenever we touch the content distribution part, a lot of marketing teams, they immediately think about paid media, right? Organic content, etc. But really, your best distribution channel is your sales team. So they are having conversations with the prospects every single day, right? And every good piece of content is a non-sales touch. So if they could leverage it, right, then the things change. They could use these pieces of content to proceed with the conversations, to stay top of the mind, etc., right? And then we have 2 more things: lists, active focus, and future pipeline. We have already covered this in the previous episodes. Active focus basically what we call high odds accounts that are likely to become sales opportunities this quarter. You pay attention to 4 categories of metrics, right? Level of vendor awareness, revenue potential, product need evidence is strong, so we know that they have a challenge our product solves, and some level of relationship. And future pipeline, these are accounts that are aware of you, of your company, but you don't know their challenge, right? And then you split the proportion. This is the essence of a good account-based marketing. 80% of your time you focus on activating these active focus accounts, right? And 20% of time to nurture and research the accounts from the future pipeline. And ultimately, one of the most important things is to develop your motion, right? Quite often companies just think about new pipeline generation, but in most cases, to get success, it would be much better to start with expansion playbooks. Maybe you have enterprise accounts where you can easily upsell, right, or cross-sell products to different business units, to different departments. So just take that analysis when you analyze your best deals, right? Top 5 fastest deals and top 5 deals by revenue. Discuss if there is a revenue potential, expansion potential. Are we selling maximum, right, licenses or products to this specific account? So analyze it and think about if there is an expansion opportunity. If yes, then you need to incorporate both. So these are basically, when you do joint planning, these are 4 groups of basically 4 items, 4 pillars that you need to discuss. Look at pipeline velocity and think about how to improve your revenue metrics. Next, go-to-market strategy adjusted for this pilot program. Next, lists, right, segmented by active focus and future pipeline, accounts that are likely to become sales opportunities and accounts that should be researched and their goal should be validated, and playbooks for generating new logos and expanding revenue with existing accounts. And the last thing that we would love to share before covering all of your questions is how to maintain this motion, right? The next logical question you guys asked us about is what should be the metrics? How can we present this pilot program to stakeholders? What should we pay attention to? So this would be the next thing that we are going to cover. But let us know, please, in the chat if everything that we have shared makes sense, is insightful, is valuable. Just provide some feedback. And while you are typing, let's move to the third part, how to adjust the KPIs in the full funnel team to focus everybody on revenue.
All right, so this is a view here for those who are watching us of an integrated revenue report broken down by sales velocity or pipeline velocity components. So just to explain quickly, what we see here is we see the sales qualified opportunities that are coming in from different sources, whether they are new, so that whether they are generated by marketing, whether they're generated by sales. And then, so obviously, so the revenue will be impacted by the number of the opportunities, but also by the quality of opportunities. And the way that we describe here in this report quality is simply by looking at the win rate. Of course, if we have a higher win rate, we are going to win more deals. We also want to track the sales cycle length, because of course the shorter the sales cycles, the more deals we can win within any given time period, whether that's a quarter or a year. And then obviously the deal size, average contract value, ACV, that we are tracking here as well. This is another element that we want to track in this integrated report. Now, what you see as well on the high level is that on the top, we are tracking the net new revenue. We are tracking the renewed revenue. So like how much of the revenue that we have signed up, let's say last year for existing customers, we were able to renew. And then expansion. So by how much were we able to upsell, cross-sell, or expand into other territories within the account, other departments, etc. Depending on how you do that, you'll do this differently. And what I really like about this report is that on the one hand, it gives you the overview of not only how you're doing in terms of, let's say, generating opportunities, generating leads, opportunities, or something like that, but really on all the components that you should be able to impact. You should be able to impact with your go-to-market strategy on the deal size. If you're going after better fit accounts, you should be able to impact win rates. If you are improving your demand generation, your messaging, your targeting, you should also see higher win rates, because people who are booking, for example, inbound after being well educated, they're coming later on in the buying stage. They've already kind of pre-qualified themselves, right, and becoming better opportunities. And obviously deal size as well if you're targeting better customers. So this is like one of the reports that will help you bring the different teams together.
And aside from revenue report, this, which is the most important one, right? You need to develop leading indicators, right? Or what we call as well soft metrics and leading metrics. Why? Because not every program, especially if you initiate this change, right? You want to solve your challenge. It won't immediately drive revenue. And this is really important. Quite often companies try to measure or try to compare motions that they were running for years, outbound, paid, to something new, right? But is it really a good idea, or does it make sense to compare something that you have done for years with something new that you just start from scratch, right? It's like if you'll just let me give you a parallel. If you'll go to gym, right, for the first time, and there is a guy who trains in the gym for the last 7 years, and then you say, hey, I would love to pick up the same weights as this guy is doing, right? So it's absolutely not realistic. So the same is here, right? You need to set up right expectations, and you need to set up preliminary metrics, right? That's why we break it down into hard, soft, and leading metrics. When it comes to leading metrics, it's all about account engagement. So do we see an engagement from target accounts? Are they visiting our high intent website pages? Are they signing up for our events, right? Are they replying to our sales people? Do our sales folks have conversations with them? So how many accounts were we able to research, right? This is what we mean by future pipeline playbooks, right? So we know their challenges. These are all leading metrics. They don't show you that these accounts, basically, this is not revenue yet, right? But all of this means that our playbook resonates, right? It has traction, and all these activities actually lead to pipeline generation, right? Without having these conversations, without doing that profile, and without having this engagement, we can't expect pipeline coming in, right? That's why we call it leading. And the second reason is because these are the activities under our control, right? We can control them. And to give you an idea, this is the report from a real project. So I just blurred some confidential information to give you an idea how that might look like, right? We track it every single week. Accounts in these different lists, active focus, future pipeline, right? How often do we do the tracking? How often do we do a review as a team, right? Which we basically will touch reviews in a second. Where should we look in the information? How many accounts went through the engagement cadence, right? With how many accounts we were able to connect, with how many accounts we were able to do the research, right? How many accounts, depending on your playbooks, right? In this case, you see how many accounts were invited to the webinar, how many accounts signed up for that specific webinar. And why it's important? Because we have joint goal, right? Webinar is obviously optional here. You can replace it with any other activities that you are doing, but you define that together you want to achieve these goals, right? Because opportunity is a lagging indicator. I never understand when people put it as a KPI. It's a lagging indicator and the result of all of these activities that are under your control, right? And every week you track your activities. The goal is to improve on them, right? So that's the key. And when team is aligned, then basically the next step is doing these activities and every week reviewing them, thinking in terms of, let's say, retrospective analysis. What worked well, what didn't work, right? What insights were we able to collect, and how can we move forward with these insights? So typically we have these different meetings that we do every week. So maybe Vlad, you can quickly cover this.
Absolutely. One. Yeah, whether you do them separately, some of the things you can combine doesn't really matter. The key here that you should take away is what are the key things that you need to be talking about during your meeting. So the first one is weekly joint campaign reviews. Basically, if you're doing joint campaigns, joint programs, you need to be reviewing all the things that Andre was just sharing. So we were sharing the leading indicators, we were sharing the obviously revenue results. But I wanted also to mention two things that are important to share during those review meetings. First of all, especially for new programs, are small wins. Well, any wins, even if they're small, right? Especially if you're starting a new program, you want to both create the momentum in the team that might be like new and working, or what's new for them is working together for the first time. So to create that momentum, to create that feeling of progress, sharing all of these wins is important, but also to the sponsors, whether they're from, the management, executive team, whomever, to give them the confidence that this is working. And small wins could be, hey, for the first, like I'm having like all these like super nice target accounts engaging with our content, and it's like easier to start conversations, up to obviously, having booked calls and in having revenue. But also what's important as well is to keep an eye on the bottlenecks. That's something that Andre and myself, we do this every week. We meet in person. Today, unfortunately, we couldn't do it, but normally every Thursday we would meet and just like take the top challenges and deep dive into understanding what is root cause and how can we solve it. Because these are one thing you don't want to do. You don't want to like put your head in the sand. You really want to be proactive about understanding what is actually holding you back and what do you need to solve in order to have a good program and good collaboration. The most important, one of the two, I would say, most important meetings that you will have is pipeline review meeting. This is the meeting where you're reviewing the results. And especially if you're working on a list of accounts together with sales, normally you are also reviewing, okay, what are the results that we are seeing on our high value target accounts that we are trying to engage and book, create opportunities with. We also want to understand, basically this is a moment where you can, if there were new accounts that were coming in as you are sourcing new accounts, as new accounts are becoming engaged, this is the moment to review them, prioritize, and decide, okay, this is what we want to do with them, that whether we want to include them or not. But also, it's not like a binary decision. It's basically, okay, we want to definitely like work on this account. They're showing sufficient, let's say, engagement. There's some brand awareness or whatever, but also like planning each individual accounts, because like we addressed on a separate podcast episode, I should say, we like to look at each account and evaluate the opportunity assessment, to do an opportunity likelihood assessment to determine whether this is likely to become an opportunity in this quarter or it's more likely to be future pipeline, because depending on that, you will assign different activities. You will spend more time, effort, and budget on that account than on the other account. So these are the kind of things that you want to share on these meetings. And I would add one more thing, which I think like a lot of people miss, and those are the insights. Every week, your sales is talking with your target buyers, and they're learning something. And these are the invaluable insights for your messaging, for your content, right? But also like in general, what we are learning about the target market, but also what we are learning about the specific accounts. And let's say, with this account is going well, but they're afraid of the change management that implementing our solution will require. Well, marketing might have, assets around this, like for example, let's say a case study where we dive deeper into how we did change management. Maybe we have reference clients that can help us with addressing this objection, or we can create roadmaps, like process maps, whatever, like to really help with very specific accounts and the specific needs of those accounts, so that we can move the deals forward. These are the kind of things you discuss on the weekly pipeline review. I think quarter sales marketing planning, I think Andre has addressed this very well when he was explaining the joint planning, but this is like a key. What we want to do definitely each quarter is to review the programs, do a post-mortem, take the lessons learned so that we can improve the next quarter programs, but also obviously plan the next quarter activities, next quarter programs. Maybe we need to, things are changing constantly in the market, changing in the business. Maybe we need to pivot, maybe we need to change, for example, depending on if the goals are changing and priorities are changing, this is the moment to do it. And what we suggest to do at least twice a year is kind of like the fundamental alignment between sales and marketing. This is something you definitely need to do as you're planning your next year, as you're creating a go-to-market strategy for the next year. You're deciding where you want to focus on which segments you want to focus on, whether you want to focus on, let's say, net new revenue. What are the things that we need to solve for that? What were things that we need to solve for, let's say, in the expansion, et cetera, et cetera. So what have we learned about ICP, et cetera, so that we are aligned on these key strategic elements, because that's where alignment starts. And unfortunately, a lot of teams don't have it.
And I see a lot of questions. So first of all, guys, thanks a lot for your feedback in the comments. We appreciate it. It's like we are doing it for our community. So whenever we hear that it resonates and it was valuable, that means a lot to us. Thank you, guys. And I saw a lot of questions about change management. So first of all, let me ask you, would you like us to record another live episode purely dedicated to change management? Because it's a huge topic itself, right? It requires how to prepare for change management, what data to collect, and how to present it the right way. So if you would like us to record an episode about change management, type plus in the comments. We'll see how many of you are interested in that topic.
I think there's change management obviously on the two levels. So change management in terms of like driving change inside of your team, but also change management on the level of target buyers and accounts, because for your buyers, implementing a new solution involves a lot of change. And so We do have examples. I believe we do have some example case studies on our blog for sure, where we always make sure to include also that part as a part of the case study. So how was it implemented? Who was like part of it? How did we drive that change? These are the things that are really important, because these are the questions that your buyers have, and that's our opportunity like to address them.
And let's pick up this question from Lexi, who leads the weekly joint campaign review meeting and who should attend. So let's start with the second one. Who should attend? Everybody who is involved into pilot program. Everybody who belongs to these cross-functional teams. That's for sure. Because everybody would have own despite you have the revenue report, right? Everybody would be in charge of their own leading indicators. Remember that slide with KPIs? So I blurred, there was a column responsible, right? So there's one owner per one KPI, and that person should report on these KPIs and on own progress, right? Otherwise, whenever you have multiple owners of one KPI, it will never work. It's just, I will show you from practice as well of leading quite big teams in corporate organizations. Now, who leads the meeting? From our experience, we always insist that the pilot program owner or change management owner leads that meeting. There should be a standard agenda, and this agenda is all about reviewing weekly KPIs, cross-sharing the insights collected during the weeks, planning what works, right? Or basically what we can do with these insights and how can we turn into actions, reviewing our progress, reviewing any blocking points or what's holding us back, reviewing any bottlenecks or areas where we struggle and discuss how can we improve them, and then do if you do account-based marketing, right? Then as well reviewing newly identified accounts, engaged accounts, or accounts that should be disqualified, right? So one of the biggest myths about ABM that we always explain that ABM lists are not static, they're dynamic, right? So every week you need to move accounts between the lists. That's why we call them active focus, future pipeline, ICP cluster, right? And planning the next actions. So that's the answer to your question. And we have quite a lot of questions that you guys submitted. I would love to pick up a few of them. Let me just quickly navigate to that part. And first of all, there was a question from Kevin about recommended best approach on developing the go-to-market strategy. So sorry?
Sorry, no, go ahead.
Yeah. So this is the diagram that basically explains the entire process, and Vlad dropped a link. We have an in-depth guide describing the process and also B2B marketing strategy course. So we don't want to cover this one, but basically share with you this model. And there was one really good, there were a lot of great questions. One of them was from Edel. What are the first steps or key steps in transitioning to cross-functional teams? So I think we can very quickly pick it up, right? What we have discussed, Vlad. It always starts with analysis, forming pilot team, and then developing the pilot program, right? If we'll summarize all the model. Challenges breakdown, reviewing these different metrics, sales pipeline, velocity, deal analysis, revenue analysis, then planning together. What are we going to do with this? Where should we focus? And developing the first program to tackle your challenge. So I think that would be important. Would you pick up the next one?
Absolutely. So you mean like the technology stack options to create and measure funnel conversions and effectiveness? So
I would drop as well.
Yeah, if you can just drop that link quickly, that would be amazing. So when it comes to technology stack, the way that we like to think about it is in stages. So if you're really in the pilot stage where you are creating a new program, we like to avoid putting cart in front of the horse, as they say. So first developing the processes and then investing in stacks. So going with a very minimal stack. If you're talking, for example, about an ABM program, having a CRM having a very basic way of tracking intent engagement data. We shared deal flow here as a sponsor is one example. And then having some account enrichment and contacts enrichment tool next to LinkedIn Sales Navigator should be enough for most people to start. So you don't really need to worry about that. In that case, the majority of metrics are coming from the CRM, actually, if it's set up correctly. And so we first do the piloting phase. Before you can start scaling, we like to take some time to operationalize our program to make sure that we are moving from a one-off program to an evergreen program, something that is running continuously. And for that, we need to document the playbook here. There are a number of tools that you can start introducing. You might introduce a different intent database or an additional source. You might optimize some things. For example, if you have been running your events on Zoom and you want to scale some of these events, you might invest in a tool like our tool that we are using here, like Goldcast. If this is really important for you, if events are really important for you. But at this stage, what you're really looking to do is document, make sure that you're doing more of what is working and that you can see how can we do more of that so that I can onboard other people and also potentially pilot other playbooks. And then during the scaling stage, you will introduce other tools. So if you have the budget and it makes sense, if you have a larger team, for you to invest in a tool like Demandbase or another tool that has the integrated support for ABM campaigns, it makes total sense. You'll also get better metrics, which was kind of the original question. That's also the time to invest in scaling tools that will help you scale. For example, if you were using direct mail, you might use ReachDesk to scale your pilot, for you might have done this manually. You can also do other automation here. Maybe you're running some ads, you can invest in a tool like Metadata or another tool that will help you scale and optimize those in a more automated way, etc., etc. So again, makes no sense to invest too early in the technologies, because each and every tool comes with its own kind of forces you in its own kind of process, and if you don't have a proven process, that's often not the good way to start, often can lead to failure. The tool itself is not going to solve it. So with that, we have come on the end. Andre had to jump off. So I wanted to thank everybody who joined. If you have maybe one quick question that you wanted me to address that was urgent and I didn't get to it, otherwise, we are planning to do more deep dives, and we are going to be publishing them on our Substack. So tomorrow you will receive the newsletter, and in a couple of weeks we are planning to do 2 or 3 weeks, we're planning to do our first deep dive about the role of SDRs in ABM, the deep dive on that and the different elements of that. So unless you have any other question, thanks a lot for yet another fantastic session here of Full-Funnel Live. And thank you, Julie. I do have a deep dive suggestion from Jennifer, how to tackle optimization of, for example, meetings book. That's an interesting one. Maybe we could start with an episode, maybe with a LinkedIn post and then an episode before we do a deep dive. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, Gary. And yeah, definitely look out for that deep dive on SDRs. Thank you, and speak to you next week on another Full-Funnel Live.